Hey, I'm Jesse,
And I'm Zach, and this is
and this is
Seidfield
Seidfield
Realty.
Realty. It doesn't like it when we talk at the same time.
Yeah, maybe
That's okay.
to do
I don't.
that.
It's Zoom. We'll move past it. Welcome to our digital podcast creation uh bit here as we figure out where to live on the internet. However you're seeing us, hello. I think we're going to start off with some backgrounds. It's been a while since the two of us have been out and about. Zach's got some new exciting news, so why don't you start off?
Yeah, thanks. So, recently had my first baby about almost a month ago now, getting getting close to that. My background is I started out when I was 25 in real estate, buying a property for a long time, maybe taking a little further step back. For most of my life, I always kind of thought that my current part of my life is when you would buy a house, when you got married, when you were about to have a kid. And it wasn't really until my first job where I met Jesse, where we learned some of these principles of how to build wealth and creating different streams of revenue, that I kind of changed my mindset a little bit. And when I first had an opportunity to, I thought, hey, what if I was living with friends at the time? Was thinking, what if I bought a house, had the same living situation, charged the same amount of rent that my friends were getting, but they're paying me rather than some nameless landlord that didn't give a crap about what our living situation was like. And that was kind of the origin of my first purchase, well before I was even dating my wife. And Jesse and I connected when I pretty soon after I bought that house. He moved back to Austin, and we would hang out and talk about real estate and investing. And that led to more investments together. We started this company, Seidfield Realty, in early 2019. And most recently, Jesse got his real estate license. I got my mortgage license. Now it's been about 3 years ago. So both investing, and we now have that background in being real estate professionals ourselves. That's kind of my quick background. Would you tell about
It's
your
gonna be.
story?
I can't believe it's gonna be 5 5 years next month. I was
Yeah.
just driving past our old work the other day with a friend, and I was like, that's the place that made it all happen.
Yeah.
Um, Yeah, I'm Jesse, like Zach said. I've been in Austin for I don't know how long I've been in Austin. I got here at the very end of 2011 and started working with Zach at AT&T. Like you said, that taught us a lot of it taught you how to be a grown up, not just how to be uh good in sales, right? You had to wear a suit in the morning, you had to go through meetings. It was a regimented working environment. But that I wasn't geared for the wealth like you, right? I wanted independence and freedom, and the real estate gave me that opportunity. It opened up those doors, right? I got bitten by the house bug when I saw you with yours, and it was jealousy. I was like, this is cool. He's the lord of the land. He doesn't We can get loud when football comes over. We can have some drinks with some friends. You let me throw a birthday party there before I had a house. Um, yeah, it was, working so hard and just kind of hitting a wall at these little jobs, not careers, was annoying me. So I finally think I bit the bullet, and after doing some odd jobs, we started Seedfield, and that really changed my mind to, let's think about the future instead of just, making as much money as what's in front of us. Let's set things up to be easier when we get older, and we're getting there. Um, and yeah, I became a realtor 2 years ago. Been running Seed Field for about five. And Zach and I bought this house that I'm talking to you from right now, Seed Field headquarters. And that was 5 years ago in December. And
Right.
What we've done since has been a lot. We've done a flip, we've done some investments, we have helped so many people in and throughout Austin and the surrounding cities buy, sell, lease, invest, get connected to people to help them move their progress or move their project forward. Um,
And I feel like what we've also done is we've built out a really great network beyond just what our individual capabilities are, where like if you asked us about really anything in real estate, at the very least, we could point you in the right direction. Even if I can't help as
right.
a lender, Jesse can't help as a realtor, we probably know someone who does at this point. We run this group, which if you're watching this, you're not part of Austin Realty Connections on Facebook,
What are you doing?
go join right now. But we had someone that posted asking about subject to, which is a very technical, kind of complicated investor creative financing method. And we know this lawyer who specializes in that. So it's great to be able to
Going to
point them in the right
going to
direction.
his class today after we get done this
Right.
up at Realtor headquarters. Um, it's funny, something we learned very early on when we first kind of aligned ourselves together to form an investment company because I didn't want to be a realtor and you didn't want to be a lender. We didn't really know what to do. We just knew we wanted to flip houses, right? That's what we knew we wanted to do. I don't remember who told us this, but it's in a notebook buried somewhere. It was one of the very early seminars that we attended. It said you need to assemble a power team. Do you remember
Right. I
that?
think it was
And
response actually, which
I
is,
think it may have been.
yeah.
Um, I wrote that down and, they said, align yourself with people that know more than you. Get yourself a real estate attorney. That was one of the most important ones, right? Align yourself with a title firm, get a good insurance representative. These are things that a couple of years ago we were kind of struggling to align ourselves with. And now people call us, hey, do you have an insurance guy? Do you have a roofer, right? Do you have a preferred title company? Do you know a lawyer that can help me in this complicated title situation? Yes,
Right.
we do.
Yeah.
You're right. It's been really interesting, like the physical nature of real estate, taking something and changing it. But that's so little of what you do in real estate. It's 95% communication and 5% real, hands-on work.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. So let's get into some questions. My first question for you, Jesse, your boots on the ground in Austin, realtor. Is this a good time to buy in Austin, and why or why not?
Why is this one's everyone's favorite question, right? Either is this a good time to buy or when is a good time to buy?
Yeah.
Realtors don't have crystal balls, right? We have realtor magic. We do. I promise you. Is it a good time to buy? It's always a good time to own versus rent, regardless of the price of the market, regardless of the rate and how much that money costs. Right now, it's February 2024, and rates are still higher than they were last year, and they're pretty steady, right? And that's making people hold off who are like on this side of the spectrum of buyers, right? Maybe your first time home buyers, your people that are slightly interested, but they're not like super motivated.
Yeah.
Maybe somebody going through the process like you or me, going over a friend's house for a social gathering for the Super Bowl last week, and now the wheels are spinning. This is cool. What do I got to do so that I can throw a Super Bowl party? It may be as simple as that, but if that's your motivation, good. Um, Owning is always better than renting because you're in control. You do whatever you want with that property. I think President Franklin Delano Roosevelt said real estate is one of the safest investments in the world. It can't simply be stolen or washed or carried away. You own that land, whether the bank owns it, whatever. You're owning that land. You can let people in. You can give people a chance. You can rent out a room. You can use it as a shelter. You can tear it down and build something else again. It's always a good time to buy when you do a pros and cons of what the inverse is like. Is right now the hottest time of the market I've seen? No, it's the market is slow in the fact that just transactions in general are it's the winter time still, right?
Right.
Nobody wants to move right now. It's cold. The weather doesn't really know what it's doing. One day it's rainy and wet, and then the next day it's kind of warm out. We'll see action, more buyers coming into more homes in the spring. Right now, if you can afford it, I think houses are, I think, I don't, there's not going to be a whole bunch more backwards movement we can do. We had a correction last year, our bubble burst. It'd be really unfathomable to think that's going to happen 2 years in a row here in town. Um, so if you can afford it and it's not going to push you outside your financial boundary, buying right now is still good because houses aren't going to get any cheaper. If rates come down 1%, but houses go another, 50 grand by the end of the year.
Right. Yeah. And the only way I could see because the drop in pricing, it's not like 2008 where there was all these fundamental flaws with the market and houses
Yeah.
just weren't actually worth what people were paying
Right.
at one point. All it is the pricing has come down in relation to how much more expensive it is to own because of rates. So unless mortgage rates get dramatically higher, which I don't foresee, I can see them trickling up a little bit, but I don't think they're going to
Please
get
no.
way higher than they are right now.
Right.
I really can't see home prices changing.
They're not going to fall, right? We didn't,
Right.
people asked me this a lot last year. We didn't go backwards. We just didn't see the gain. There was maybe a couple different pockets, but again, I think the news asked us this question about, like what you would have had to have done to be like upside down
Right.
in your mortgage, right? And like it's such a thin scenario of what you would have had to have done. Go ahead. I know you want to elaborate on that.
Well, so they asked a question about like theoretically could someone be upside down in their mortgage,
Right.
and I said yes, theoretically if you bought during the peak and you absolutely had to sell, like if you're going through a divorce or something like
Right.
that.
Or your job is forcing you without compensating you for the move on one or the other end, which really doesn't happen, but it could.
And even then you could rent it out if you have to move
Right.
out. That's why I
No,
always
no
tell.
one's forcing the sale. Right.
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 Divorce is really the only scenario where you really have to get out of it for a number of reasons. But what I always tell people is if you can afford to buy and hold on to the property for at least 5 to 7 years, it's going to be a good investment, almost certainly, unless you bought at the absolute peak and the market crashes, which both of us don't think is going to happen.
Exactly.
There's because of how you pay more towards the principal over time and with how appreciation works. Like it's not going to be a steady like 5-6% growth every year, but when you average it out over a long enough period of time, it will average out. In Austin, it's been about 6 or 7% on average for the past like 30-40 years. That's when the law of large numbers plays in your favor, and it really eliminates the possibility that it's going to be a bad investment.
And I don't think you've got to wait for anything more than 2 or 3 years in Austin to start making your money. Even now, right? You would have had to have bought in the correction at a super high rate, and even
Right.
now, I think you're just about spread out, right? Um, and it's funny because the news took what you had said there, and in our
Right.
45-minute conversation, they took about 8 seconds of it and made us look great.
Or,
I have a question. I know we have a lot of listeners that and followers and seedlings, whatever, that pay attention to us for a lot of different stuff, but not everybody's a homeowner. What is something that's changed, like your mentality now that you are a homeowner versus renting?
it's a good question. I think definitely because I've gone back to renting for a small period of time from
That's right.
owning. And I think the biggest thing is the level of I don't consider myself like a real control freak necessarily, but I definitely prefer to be in control of my living situation and have myself be where the buck stops than a landlord, even if it's a really good landlord, which usually they're not, in my experience at least. But that's the biggest thing I'd say is the change in mentality of like pride of, and even like my wife, the home we're in now, this is her first time owning a home. And I think she
Right.
hadn't thought of that part until we have kind of lived in it for a little bit of like, you take pride in it a little more. You think about like, oh, we can buy cats in 2 months. You don't have to check with a landlord. You know, we did
Right.
that. You can put stuff
You can
up
turn
on
a
the
room
wall.
into the reptile room and
Right,
do what you
right.
want.
We just, over the weekend, her parents helped us drill shelves in the garage to create more space. Like none of that happens if you're renting without landlord's
Right.
permission. And I'd say
And then you
that's
got to
the
rip
biggest.
it down when you move out anyway, which is more time and money. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, the financials aside, obviously, I could go on and on about how much
Sure.
better financially it is. I'd say that shift in control and the pride of being able to really, control your own space completely is the biggest shift for me.
Yeah. It's nice having a place that, as long as you pay your money, nobody can
Right.
take away.
Yeah.
You know, I remember we're in a leap year this year. We will have an extra day in February, and I remember I think it was 12 or 16 years ago, right? Multiple of four. You're the lender. I was living in New York, and it had to have been 16 years ago because 12 I was in Austin,
Yeah.
and our landlord posted an eviction notice on the inside of our door on February 29th because she said our rent was late. And I was as a private landlord that can't evict somebody that quickly, but it was February 29th.
Yeah.
I woke up and I was like, oh my God, this lady forgot it's leap day. I was like, I don't, this is not fun for me, This isn't, yeah. Um, why do you think landlords get a bad stereotype? And we know plenty.
Sure.
It's easier to be a bad landlord than a good landlord. Like it's easier to drown than swim, right? You got to put in effort to swim.
Yeah. I'd say so. For one, a lot of landlords are not the owners, they're property management companies. And I think the business model of property management is kind of around doing as little as possible and having systems in place. I mean, hate to say it, because we know some property managers
I would
and
say
they're not
we are
all
gonna get some property managers that are gonna
right.
burn us here.
They're not all created equal, but I think especially once you get to like the really, really large scale property management companies, which most of the ones we know are not that, but it
Sure.
is a business where like they're not they're not getting paid anymore to respond really quickly. That's the bottom line is there's a financial
You're right.
lack of incentive unless they charge the landlord for like a markup of every service request or something like that, which I feel like a lot of landlords wouldn't accept that, so that just
Right.
doesn't compute. I
But
think
isn't the
that's
incentive to keep the person in there? Like if you are better with that person, if you're more communicative and more responsive, they're going to stay longer, which means you can increase their rent little by little. You don't have that newness factor, right? You've got a tenant, we don't need to say who it is. They've been in one of your rentals for a while, right? Replacing them with somebody is something that you could do, but then you invite the risk of, will this person be cohesive? Will they blend with the environment? Are they just going to completely, fail to adapt? This person may not be the world's model tenant, but they're consistent, right?
I think it is ultimately a short-sighted view to take for property management companies. I just think it's the reality. Now, I think it's different when you're the individual landlord or homeowner, I should say, that's also managing your own property. I think in that case, it's more often, I think you're going to take a little more pride in the property than a property management. They have no real incentive that the property is kept up well, but so you're more likely to probably check in and follow up on how the condition of the property is, how things are going. But it also, once you're not living in the property, it can be easy to not to just have it be a passive
Yeah.
thing. And if there's a poor level of communication and the tenant is not proactive and
Sure.
reaching out for things, I think that can be part of it. But I would say for the most part, the knock is that the is more of these large scale property management companies. That would be
That
my
makes sense. You know, as much as some of those large scale companies don't have the communication that they should with their tenants, I also feel like tenant awareness of what is a law and what isn't a law, like you should have an understanding of something before you sign it, right? Like signing a lease without understanding it, not, that's not good advice. And I do have a lot of people that we hear it all the time. Well, I put in a request and they didn't respond, so that's a broken lease. They're violating the lease. No, you probably just didn't do things by the book. I don't mean to side with these people, but now that we understand the legalese and how leases are written, they're always written to protect the property owner. They're never written to protect the person in it. So if you're about to lease, or buy, have a real estate professional review your
yeah.
lease, your contract.
Unless you're a lawyer yourself, you should have a real
Right, right.
over your lease. What would be some tips for that you would offer for someone that wants to get into owning and managing their own property? Well, whether that's house hacking
Jeez.
where they're living in there or buying a rental and just filling
You
tenants.
you have to be okay with being being adaptable and being able to put out a lot of small fires. You're going to get stuff that is super important to the person it's happening to. That's not like the outcome of it doesn't really change your life at all. It would if you ignored it. But it's something where you're like, all right, this is somebody we've made an agreement, right? That they've agreed to stay in my property for money. I need to respond to them. Um, it's a good question.
Yeah. I
Uh,
think that's a big one. And like every single time, just about, unless it's about rent, any time a tenant reaches out to me, it's like to them the most
Most
important
important thing in the
thing,
world.
and
Right.
it's
Right.
major priority. And sometimes it is like if the AC goes out, that's on me to fix ASAP. Doesn't matter what time of day, what day of the week, that's my priority. But other times you have to, you know, okay, I'll get to that, or sometimes you just have to tell them no if it's not a big priority.
Right. I can't remember the scenario, but we've gotten a couple odd requests from tenants, and it's like, we'll do things within reason. We're humans too. It was only a couple years ago until we rented, that we were renting, sorry. And I think we pride ourselves on having good landlord-tenant communication.
Yeah,
So yeah, back to your question, what would help? Having an understanding of like the goal in mind, whether what you want to do with it will help, because then you'll start to understand the path and get advice from people.
mhm.
So have an understanding and be communicative, and you'll go. You're not gonna. You'll make some wrong turns, but you'll stay within your lanes. Those two things I feel like are the most, you know, like the more we know and the more we tell people about it, the more you'll manifest it, right? You got a problem, say something. You want to learn something, ask, you
Yeah,
know.
yeah. And I think also the just not being afraid to turn people away. if there's any reason, like do your due diligence on your, if unless it's someone that you already know, of course, but
Right.
if it's an outside tenant, do your due diligence and don't be afraid to say no for any reason. Like that's your prerogative. We have a tenant now who came from a situation where the landlord he had been living with, it sounds like, didn't screen at all and didn't really have a lease drawn up. And
No.
without going in too depth, it didn't end too well. And that's generally going
Yeah.
to be the case if you operate that way. And I think
I'm going back to what you were saying about like the incentivization, which is, I mean, at the end of the day, that's what anything boils down to, right? That's why, we're working hard for our business. We're incentivized by our reputation. If the landlord at the end of the day, these guys with paper leases, and I don't mean to say guys, these people with paper leases and just kind of doing things off a handshake, you're not doing your service, and the tenant as well should some red flags like, why is my lease written on a napkin,
yeah,
right? Why don't we have a structure for this, right? Yeah, it's a little boring, but if you create, a layout, a procedure, a plan, it'll make everything go a little bit easier because when things crash, they do. It's not if. It's especially when you're working with humans, which is what you're doing. You're managing people as a landlord. You're managing them in a very very disconnected way versus like a work employee. But they still rely on you for things when things go wrong. You're the person that they call for help. You have to have a little bit of that in you, or else you're going to hire a property manager.
right. Which is not, it's not the worst thing,
Right.
but you,
You're adding another, now it's, every time there's a question, this guy's got to call this guy to call this person to go back and forth. You got to pay that person.
right. And they're never going to do as good I this is secondhand because I have yet to hire
Right.
a property manager, but everyone I talk to will say that they're not going to take care of the property the way you will.
Listen, we've already burned a couple property managers. I'm going to say it. Property management is like paying for those grocery and Instacart deliveries, right? Those people have a list of the vegetables and everything that you want. They're going to go there and they're going to get them.
Yeah.
The quality, when you're looking at the fruit, I got OCD. I like to grab the second milk. I don't know why. They're not doing that.
Sure.
There's no incentivization for them to do that. So maybe there is a correlation with, disconnection. I don't know.
Yeah.
Something to go into more detail with when we've got more time.
Yeah. I think that's a good take. Property managers are like Instacart
There's
versus
nothing wrong with them.
shopping
They
for
they
yourself and managing your own property.
they they speed and expedite a service. If you can't get out of your house, you've got a little baby. Right now, Instacart sounds fucking lovely.
Really take him to we've got a strap where, but it would be a lot easier for sure to do Instacart
Right,
now. But we're
right.
willing, it's a financial thing. We're willing to
Exactly. You've got to
pay
pay for
less
it.
and do more right now. I
Yeah,
would say the last point I would add is everyone wants to get into property management, having tenants for the financial benefit. That's where you lead. But if
sure.
that's all you're concerned about, you're in it for the wrong reasons. And you might as well just, if you're going to do it, hire a property manager because it
Right.
is a responsibility and it's one that you have to take seriously. And like I said, if you're not
That's
willing to be up, at late at night with trying to get a HVAC guy out there because it's
right.
the middle of summer in Texas and
We
or
got to go run around this afternoon to get a washer for one of our
right,
rentals, right? Good thing we have a spare. We were smart and we're like, hey, this one was cheap. Let's pick up a spare because they're gonna break. Like
right.
it's a machine. They break.
Yep.
The washer breaks, the oven breaks, the HVAC breaks, the roof will eventually break. Can't hang on to spare roofs, but we've got spare machines.
Yeah. But
Good
as long
contingency
as
plan.
okay with, and ideally, as if you want the responsibility and kind of an added level, I mean, this is part of why I got into it, was I wanted the experience of essentially managing people, managing a house, and I was happy to take that responsibility. That's the type of person I think that should manage a property themselves.
I agree. Not just somebody that is financially set up to, just because you have the money to own a home doesn't, it makes you a landlord by definition, but it doesn't do it by anything else. Here he is, little Patrizzi to end up our show. Let's give the world some baby shot. Oh wow, he's got a full head of hair.
Yeah, yeah. He came out with a head of
Is he?
hair. He's not too happy right now, but there he is. Give him some.
What's the 3 weeks?
It'll be 4 weeks this Friday.
Shit. Is he talking yet?
No, definitely not. But he is eating. He's eating a lot.
What? How upset? Do you have to go?
Um, I could stay till the 6 minute mark.
How upset will you be as a father when he becomes an Eagles fan?
He's not going to become an Eagles fan. I could see him being like a Chiefs fan because they're the best team right now. Or and Claire, my wife's family's from Missouri, close to Kansas City. Like, I don't think
Okay,
he would be an
okay.
Eagles fan. I would be disappointed. I'm not going to lie if he was an Eagles fan, but I would not disown him.
Are you going to push for Patrick to be a Cowboys fan?
I'm not going to push. I'll. He'll know. He'll know I'm a Cowboys fan. It's not going
Do
to
you think
be tough for
do
him
you
to figure
think
it out.
your bleeding energy may deter him from being a Cowboys because he sees
Oh,
your raw passion, we'll call it.
yeah.
Um,
I don't have that answer for you. We'll
all
find
right.
out.
We'll find out next time. We'll leave it on that one.
Yeah, yeah,
Take care of the little one. Nice chatting with you, and looking forward to continuing this and helping out some other people online with our answers.
yeah. Sounds good. See you guys next time.
Later.
Later.